I was 16 when I realized that being polite can actually put you in danger. It started with a blind date with a guy a friend of a friend introduced me to. It was a school dance, and we'd all decided to go for it. My date, went to another school, but we talked on the phone a few times before the dance. This was before texting, and he seemed normal enough. Awkward, maybe, but harmless. The night itself was fine. Nothing special happened, and I believed that would be the end of it. After the dance, he kept calling. Casual calls, check-ins, small talks, but every conversation led back to his ex-girlfriend. How she betrayed him. How she ruined his life. I started losing interest and stopped answering as often. Then, a few days before summer, he said something I can never forget. He casually told me his ideal Christmas gift would be his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend dead under his tree. He said it like he was talking about socks, not actually humans. I stopped answering his calls completely after that. Apparently that statement was a mistake, and quote, he started sending messages through the mutual friend who had set us up. They were just rude, calling me names, saying I thought I was better than him. Then they turned cruel, personal, and the friend delivering them seemed to enjoy it. But the worst part was that he knew where I worked. I had a part-time job at a store in the mall. He started showing up with his friends while I was stuck at the register. They would stand just outside the entrance and shout things at me. Loud enough for customers to hear, and I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. I didn't have anyone step in for me. Not my coworkers, not my managers, and this harassment went on for weeks. The final message came through that same friend after school one day. He told me that the guy planned to hurt me. He didn't use that exact word, but the meaning was clear. The friend thought it was hilarious, but I wasn't having any of it. I was at my locker when he told me. I slammed the door shut inches from his face and said a word I'd never said out loud before. I meant it. Every syllable. He backed away, shocked. I don't know what he told the stalker after that, but the visits stopped. The messages stopped. Just like that. Still, for months I felt watched. Walking to work, riding the bus, standing alone anywhere. I never told my parents, never told the school. Nothing ever happened, but I learned something important. Sometimes the scariest part of a story isn't what someone does. It's realizing how close they were to doing it and how invisible you felt the whole time. I was a teenager, still living with my parents, and strange things would happen every now and then. Nothing obvious, just off. Sometimes I'd look out into the backyard late at night and think I saw movement near the trees. Other times I'd hear light tapping against my window, just enough sound to make me look up from whatever I was doing. I told myself it was probably nothing. Neighborhood kids, animals, pranks. My brain worked overtime to make it feel normal, because admitting it wasn't felt worse. Weeks passed like that, maybe months, then came the night that made it impossible to ignore. It was around 2 a.m. I was up late on the computer in my room, the rest of the house completely quiet. My parents were asleep, the lights were off, and even the dog, who barked at everything, was silent. That's when the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the house, sharp and unmistakable. My heart started racing immediately. No one ever rang our doorbell that late. Ever. I went straight to my parents' room and woke them up, whispering that someone was at the door. My dad listened for a moment, then shook his head. He said he didn't hear anything. The dog wasn't barking. No lights were on outside. They told me it must have been my imagination and sent me back to bed. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, feeling embarrassed for overreacting, but also wide awake. Eventually I fell asleep. The next morning my dad called me outside. Right below my bedroom window, where my desk and computer were, was a small pile of cigarette butts. Fresh ones, crushed into the dirt like someone had been standing there. No one in my family smoked. Suddenly everything clicked. The tapping, the movement in the yard, the feeling of being watched when I was alone in my room at night. Someone had been there watching me. We never found out who it was. No neighbors reported anything. No one was caught. The strange activity eventually stopped, but the damage was already done. Even now, years later, I still can't sit near a window late at night without checking outside first, because the worst part isn't knowing who it was, it's knowing they were there and I never heard them leave. When I was 23, I was a shift instructor at a Burger King. I was married, had 2 small kids, and lived only a few streets away from the store. To save gas, I usually walked to work. It felt safer that way because I knew the neighborhood and the regulars that goes on in it. I was always on the floor with my crew, either at the front registers or running drive-through, so customers saw me a lot. That's probably why he noticed me. A guy a little older than me started coming in regularly. He just seemed friendly, maybe, but customer service friendly. He'd smile, make small talk, linger a bit longer than necessary, but I observed one thing strange. He only came in when I was working. Every time, not once or twice. If I wasn't on shift, he didn't show up. If I was on drive-through, he'd be there. If I was up front, he'd order inside. It became predictable. I told my husband about it. Mostly as a joke, but inside I was relieved he knew, just in case. I don't think the guy ever came near our house, but at work, he was there. Always nearby and watching. Then one day I walked in for my shift and he was behind the counter. One of the assistant managers was training him. I found out later he'd specifically asked to be scheduled on my shifts. I didn't say a word to him. I went straight to the office and told the store manager everything. How often he came in, how it lined up perfectly with my schedule, how long it had been happening. She listened. She knew there was a guy who came in a lot, but she had no idea it was him. She was genuinely horrified. She told me she'd keep him away from me immediately and started making calls while I was standing there. She arranged a transfer to another store, closest one available. That day would be his last day in our building. After that, he'd never work near me again. She even sent me home and called in the other night shift manager, so I wouldn't have to be there. When I came in the next day, she pulled me aside. She told me he hadn't taken the news well. He'd quit instead. For a moment, I thought that was the end of it, but he came back a few times after that. Not as an employee, just as a customer. Sitting in the dining room, watching the counter. That's when I asked my husband to come sit inside during my shifts. He didn't have to say anything, he just sat there. After that, the guy never came back. I never learned what he wanted. I never found out how far it might have gone, but I still think about how close he got, how easily he tried to insert himself into my life, and how the only reason it stopped is because someone finally noticed.